I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV Velocities in Music, the best kept secret in music reviews. This is our first review of the year 2014. And guess what? It's like my favorite time of year for music because no new music is coming out right now. Actually, that's not true. I think there were some new albums released yesterday, Tom.
But we're keeping up on them a little bit.
Yeah,
this is a great time of the year to jump back in time a little bit.
You know, really, pretty much as soon as like November of the year, you know, as soon as November passes, December is kind of a lull. Early January really doesn't heat up until like the end of January.
Yeah.
Early February. That's when a lot of artists start releasing albums. You know, Grammy considerations, things like that. They got stuff on their minds, and we understand that. Also, you know, releasing albums during the holiday season, it probably gets overlooked because everyone is really into Christmas music. I know. Anyways, we like to take this opportunity each year and go back, and there's always a slew of albums you guys are requesting for throwbacks that we or either have never listened to or have listened to a ton and love, and either way they deserve a review. So this is our opportunity to go back in time and review those albums. So I mean, we'll do it in present day. So today we're going to review Pixies' second album, Doolittle. Tom, you know a little bit about Pixies.
Yeah,
go for it.
Pixies is a band that I've always enjoyed but never really dug into, which is why we picked Doolittle as a good throwback request for review.
We were going to pick Surfer Rosa.
Yeah.
But, you know,
the cover has some nudity on it.
A little bit nude.
And
it's not, I'm not opposed to nudity.
No, I love it.
I'm actually, if without copyright or like bad laws or something, I would film naked.
You can do your own show with that. I'll stay out of that one. But the
in another life.
Yeah, the big thing is the both of us listen to music at work, and that can be kind of iffy if our boss walks by and there's some boobs on our screen. It's too bad, really. But
nobody on my team would care.
But really, I think that Doolittle is a great pick anyway.
It is.
It really is. As the second album for Pixies, which, you know, this is one of those bands, they came out with 4 albums in 4 years, and that was pretty much it. And I love digging into bands like this that have a small catalog over a short period of time, but we're still able to make an impact. You gotta love that. Another band like that is Jane's Addiction from around this time period. We reviewed Nothing Shocking, their debut from 1988 or 89, around the same time that Doolittle came out. And it's like, wow, that album's still being talked about today. Doolittle is another one of those. And where it sees the Pixies going is from Surfer Rosa, which is just this like kind of progenitor to grunge masterpiece of an album where it all over the place. I mean, in songwriting and production, it's a little more lo-fi. It's very grungy. And when I say grungy, I'm not even really talking about the genre. I'm talking about just plain old production sound. I mean, from the drums to the bass to the guitar, everything. And that, you know, while it got a lot of critical acclaim, it didn't bring a lot of commercial success for Pixies. I still come back to that album, and in particular, while I know it's cliche, Where Is My Mind is still just one of the best songs ever. I could listen to that on repeat all day and not get sick of it.
Now, I read that Pixies were actually, you know, Black Francis was being pulled in a poppier direction kind of by his producer on this album.
Yes.
And you know, obviously he didn't want to do that.
Yeah, and so it's interesting how that played into this album, because I think there's an interesting dichotomy in the sound where you can tell that the producer's pulling them in a little bit more mainstream poppy direction, but the band's fighting against it in the way they're performing and in the way they're writing songs. I know that Frank Black was very adamant about keeping these songs short.
Yes.
Keeping true to that punk spirit of 2 to 3 minute just powerhouse tracks.
And if you look at the average track length here, it has to be like just under 3 minutes for most of these tracks. I mean, most of these songs are 2.5 minutes long.
So that's really what they were trying to do with their general attitude in the songwriting. And, you know, this album, it just makes sense from that perspective, because it is a little bit more of a polished and constrained version of Surfer Rosa, just with a different set of songs. And it has their classic kind of instrumental approach where you have Black Francis's just classic screams and yelps, a lot of just energy and authentic attitude in his voice. You know, you got those thunking bass lines that move things around. Very dirty guitar still. I would say the biggest production difference is really just that the drums were mostly cleaned up on this album.
Absolutely.
But the guitars on top of them still sound very kind of trashy. But it's more from there about the way that the vocals are mixed in to kind of bolster everything up. While things are cleaned up a bit, it's still not mixed exactly in a poppy way, because the vocals aren't really on top. You can still hear them. They come out in the mix, but they're not right in your face. It's more just, it lets Frank Black's vocals just kind of rise to the top in his performance.
Yeah, and I mean, really, if you think about this album and the direction that they were going, yes, it is poppier, but this is by no means anywhere close to a pop album.
Especially considering that at this point in time, anything close to this genre really wasn't popular.
No. Now, there's several tracks on here that I do think are fairly accessible. You know, Wave of Mutilation's a huge song. You know,
Here Comes Your Man.
Here Comes Your Man. Even Monkey Gone to Heaven. I mean, those three tracks just come to my mind as being a little bit on the like they're definitely pop structured.
Yeah.
But they're not pop songs. They're accessible. They're fun to listen to. They get stuck in your head like you would expect a pop song to. And maybe that's but by no means did this album ever feel like a pop album. I feel like I get my face rocked off for most of the album, and especially track 2, Tame, which I think is just this fantastic track using just a ton of dynamics. Doolittle blows me away when I think about dynamic contrast. And dynamic contrast for anything in the grunge genre was absolutely key. It's what separated the verses from the choruses. It's what made you pay attention to everything that's going on, whether it's the drums, the bass, the guitars, but especially the vocals. It's so important in a grunge band like Pixies for the vocalist to project and to really go crazy in the parts of the song that are, loud. And if they're not doing that, then they're probably not selling the song enough.
And really another thing that they do to add to the dynamics, it's not just about performance. It's not just about whether the vocalist is singing quietly or singing loudly, which actually Tame is a good example of where it goes from that quiet to loud in performance. But it's also about what aspects of the band happen to be playing at the same time. You'll drop out guitars. You'll drop out bass sometimes. Sometimes it'll just be drums and vocals. Sometimes it'll just be bass and vocals. Sometimes it'll just be bass. I mean, at that point, it's not about the performance or the mixing. It's just about what is actually present. If you only have 2 components instead of 4, then it's naturally going to be a little bit quieter. And they are masters of just bringing those components of the band in and out seamlessly to create those dynamics.
Which shows that they're expert songwriters. I mean, really, when it comes down to it. And then when you take in, one of the things that impresses me about Doolittle is the fact that this album is, it's kind of a smorgasbord of different styles. I mean, you got a lot more of rock-based tracks, what you traditionally think of as grunge-based tracks. There's some punk-based tracks, and there's some even poppier tracks.
Surf rock.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this album presents a good variety, but what really impresses me, even more so than that, is the fact that they had the tact to lay the album out in a way where you're not grouping the different styles of songs. This works as a straight-through listen, which, as you guys know, via MTV, we really care about that straight-through listen. When we put an album on, we want to be able to hit play, let it play throughout, and, by the end of the album, we don't want to have had to skip a single track. And I never get that sense on Doolittle. I really like every single one of these tracks. It's just that there's some of them that I absolutely love.
Well, some of them are naturally going to rise to the top.
Absolutely.
But what's great about Doolittle is that of its 15 tracks, I had trouble narrowing it down to 7 or 8. Like half the album I picked as track picks because those were the songs that were constantly playing in my head. I'd kind of like play through a part of one song and then it'd go to another song, and that was when I really realized that I was falling in love with this album. Because, like I said, this is a band I've always come back to and enjoyed, but never really loved. And it's great being able to come back and review albums like this because I know that I'm either going to be swayed in one direction or the other. Either I'm going to get to know the album and I'm going to think, yeah, this is good, but or I'm just going to go nuts over it. And this is an album I ended up going nuts over, and I really wish that I had given it more of a chance earlier in my life, but I'm really glad that now I feel like I finally get it.
You're still a young man. You're still a young man.
That's true.
You still have the rest of your life to listen to Doolittle. In particular, so the last 3 tracks are fantastic. You pointed out. I mean, we both picked 13 Hey and track 14 Silver. I mean, both of us picked those, but you mentioned that the closer's great too. I mean, this is just a fantastic album from start to finish, and really it should be in all of our repertoire. So I mean, I agree. We all got to go out and listen to this. And Pixies are a band that I'm glad that we took the chance to review because, man, getting more exposure to this album is something that
a lot of requests for it, too.
Absolutely.
So I'm glad to honor that.
What are you going to give it?
I'm giving it a 100.
Okay.
I loved it.
So I'm almost at that absolute love point, but I'm not quite there yet. I wouldn't be surprised if a little bit of time passes and all of a sudden I'm at 102. But today, not there yet. 96.
All right.
So that averages to a 98 from Velocities of Music. Clearly from historical connotation, applied, we take history out of this and just listen to the music, but historical connotation applied, this is a 100 by any music critic standards, but we just it's a gut feel. Anything that's in the 90s, you guys gotta listen to and give us your feelings, thoughts, and opinions at www.velocitiesandmusic.com or youtube.com/velocitiesandmusic. As always, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, let us know what albums you would like to see us review on this channel. I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, moving music critique forward.